Hi, this is Mike from Family Dive TV, and today we're going to be making a DIY LED fixture.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to start with just making a simple diagram of the wall. Then we're going to go around, we're going to measure everything, and I'm going to get pretty close. All right, so now it's just a matter of doing some math, okay? So you can either go to the store and buy, like Home Depot, sometimes you can go there and you can actually buy 12, 13, 14 foot pieces and cut them to the size you need. For what I'm using 8-foot stock, okay? So I have 11-foot wall, 13-foot wall, 12-foot wall, you know. So obviously I'm gonna have to have some seams in here. So what I'm gonna do is go around, figure out like, okay, so this one's 13 feet. Let's just call it 14 feet, it's 13.8. I'm gonna say, okay, obviously I just need 2 pieces for that. All right, so that's 2 pieces. This is how I do it. So I'm gonna do the same thing all around. All right, so just go around, make yourself a map, go to the store, pick up some material. All right, so using all of our measurements that we, figured out and wrote down in our book, we went to the store and we bought 5 1x4s, okay? And these were 8 foot long. If you can get them longer, that'd be great, because if you have a 12-foot wall, for example, it'd be nice if you could get a 12-foot piece, but I can only get 8-foot length, okay? These are actually prime. You can also get this in MDF. MDF, I'm not a big fan. Where I learned about MDF, it's best not to have that in your house. So these are actually pine, okay? It's real wood. It's jointed, so it's like finger jointed and glued together. So sometimes you can see the actual joints in it. There is a presentation side and a non-presentation side. So you gotta be careful when you're cutting and stuff like that and using them for trim. And the idea is that I'm actually gonna cut these in half. So that's gonna get me 10 pieces. Or the way that I made these is I took each one of my 1x4s, and on my table saw, I set my blade at 30 degrees, all right? That gets this kind of cut here, all right? I set my gate at about 1.5 inches, okay? And like I said, this gave me 2 pieces out of each 8-foot length of something like this. Now I know what you're thinking, what if I don't have a table saw? You may not have a table saw. But what you could do is buy like a 1x2, so this is a 1x4, so it'd be a little bit smaller than this. And maybe instead of having this little back cut that kind of hides the LEDs, maybe instead you install this up on the wall like you're gonna see me do, and you just put the LEDs, so you would cheat the LEDs, and if this was the wall, install the LEDs like as close to the wall as possible. So that would keep you from seeing them most likely because they're high, and it would still give you this nice decorative detail or decorative trim around the top of the room. Makes it look cool. That's an option. If you do want to have that angle, well then you're going to need a table saw. I will put a link to a few down below. You can pick them up pretty cheap, and if you're kind of interested in doing this project, then you're probably going to need a table saw in the future. So you can pick them up pretty cheap on Amazon, maybe 150 bucks or 100 bucks on like a crazy sale, or maybe go online in Facebook Marketplace and find yourself a table saw. It doesn't have to be, this is not even my table saw, it's actually my neighbor's, so thanks for letting me borrow this thing. But I have another one that's pretty cheap. It's like a skill saw, and they work. You put them down the ground and you can run it through. So I went through, I cut them all. I got 10 pieces, 10 8-foot pieces like this. And now we're gonna we gotta paint it. So we're gonna paint the front face, the part that's facing out, and the bottom, because we're gonna see that, okay? We're not gonna worry about this. You could paint this if you wanted to, but I really don't think it's needed. She's on paint duty. And we're gonna use our repaint tray. It's got a silicone insert. So I'll put a link to this down below. It's actually really cool. We really like it. And in between coats, it has a cover so you can cover it. And then cleanup is simple. You just peel all the paint out. All right, so now we got all the pieces painted up and ready to go. So now we're kind of at the point where we're gonna install this stuff. So we need to figure out how high on the wall to go. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn off the lights, hold the LEDs up there, and sort of just figure out how high we want this to go, all right? All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a piece of tape here. And this is roughly where this is gonna go all the way around the room. Now that we know that's the bottom of it, we wanna look around the room, make sure there's nothing that's gonna be in our way. So let's check this, make sure this is gonna interfere. So we're roughly 4 1/4. And look at that, we're like almost 4 1/4, like we're very close. All right, so now how are we gonna make sure that this is the same height all the way? We could do that a few different ways, okay? One way is we could just hold this up here. We can measure down, and this is like right at 4 1/8. And then we just go and install it at 4 1/8 all the way around the room. Or from the inside, it's about 3 inches, okay? So what you could do is cut yourself a 3-inch block, cut a few of them, and then use that as a spacer. So everywhere you'd put that on the ceiling and against here, and that would be like your spacer you know, against here, and you just would make sure you're at the same height all around the room. Or like this. So this is a laser. It's got magnets on it. That's a really cool part of this, okay? This is gonna shoot level line all around the room. It's got multiple settings on here. I'll put a link to this down below. This thing is really cool, and let me show you why. Most corners of most houses have metal built into the corner. It's basically to add some strength, and that metal is magnetic, of course. So I can go like this and attach it to here and have a level line all the way through out the room. Throw this up here.
That's good.
And there we go. When we're coming up with our big pieces, is make sure it's the bottom of it is lining up with that laser. Okay, most corners are not 45 degrees. They're not inside 45s and they're not outside because there's a lot of buildup with spackle and things like that. So what I like to do is I like to cut, I have these in my bag. These are like little blocks. And what I do is I cut them at 44 and 45, and I have 2 of each one. So you see I have 46. This is how I use these. So let's come over here, for example, use the 245s. So if I come here and I put these 245s together, look at how that's opened up. You see that, how that's opened up there? Now, if I take my 46s, okay, and we put them up here, see how that closes up? So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make sure when I cut this outside, I don't cut it at 45, I'm gonna cut it at 46. You know, these are real simple to make, and you keep them in your box and ready to go. All right, so now to install these cleats onto the wall, what are we gonna use? So I'm gonna use my Ryobi brad nailer, okay? We are going to use 18 gauge nails, and they're gonna be 2 inches long. We're gonna go through, we're gonna find all of our studs. So we're gonna have a stud finder as we go through. Everywhere there's a stud, we're gonna run one of these brad nailers in there. Now, if you don't have a brad nailer, you could use trim screws. If you go to Home Depot, Lowe's, they have trim screws. You actually have to only use a few of them if you use trim screws because they're a lot stronger than a brad nail. And they're super small, they leave a super small hole, okay? So either use something like this or trim screws. So we got the first one up. We're using 8-foot lumber here, okay? And I have like a 12-foot wall, so obviously it's not long enough. We're gonna have a joint. I already cut this side at 44. I'm gonna hold it up here kind of roughly where it needs to go. And where our joint is gonna be, I wanna make sure I cut it on a 45 degree on that angle where there's a stud. Okay, because if we just put it in the middle of the wall, that seam is going to eventually open up, okay? And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a stud. So looks like our joint is going to be right around here. So this is where my joint's going to be. But another thing I'm going to think about here is how I'm going to cut this piece, because you don't want to see the joint, right? So when I cut this, I'm actually going to cut it this way, all right? So that when you're looking at it, you're less likely to see the joint, and you're gonna think you're coming in from the door here. So we're gonna cut it this way, on this way of an angle. So 45. So I'll just make a little mark for myself on the piece that I'm cutting off. All right, so for this cut here, measure 69 from this point here to that corner there, all right? So we're gonna cut this one at 45, but the opposite, of course, and we're gonna cut that at 44. Down to the saw again. We're at 44 degrees, cut here, and a 45 degree cut here. Now what we're gonna do is, this is a stud here, we're gonna line this up, and that's what it's gonna look like. We're gonna sand this, fill it in, okay? We're gonna run our nails, we'll put a little bit of glue. Someone's gonna use a little bit of this glue. Use all different kinds of glue. And we're just gonna keep continuing all the way around the room. All right, so I'm gonna get tacking and gluing.
It's like, no, how does it stay? Like, like, we're really breaking your walls with gravity right now.
Very tight. I'm not gonna nail this all the way in, so I have it just enough to be held up there. So I put my next piece in there, I can really tweak this. And then once it's perfect, I'll nail here and nail here, okay? So my laser idea may not have been the best. So let me show you what's going on here, what I'm running into. So up here I have around 2 inches. Around here I have about 2 inches. Around here I have 2 inches. Over here, I have like 2.5 almost. Now, that's the outside wall. So I think what's happening is the ceiling is pitching like up. So it like kind of goes up. So although it's level, so it's a level, if you were to put a level between here and there, yeah, it'd be level and that's good and everything, but cosmetically it doesn't work. So sometimes level doesn't really matter, it's more cosmetic. So I think my idea earlier where we would do the blocks would be a better solution. So I would cut like a block, you know, in this case, maybe like 2 inches wide, maybe cut a few of them. And then while I'm installing this, push this all the way up to the block and then set your nails. Live and learn. use a block instead. All right, so I think we might have fixed it. Crisis averted. So what I did was I pried this out. These pieces were, this part of the trim seemed to be the worst. So I pried it out a little bit, pushed it up and sort of bent the nails in and smashed them up against the wall, okay? Then I just drove another nail in between here. So that's, there used to be 2, now there's 3, there used to be 1, now there's 2. All right, I think that fixed it. Now we're just gonna keep moving on. Now that's a tight fit. Don't even need to put any nails. Woo! So the next step is to fill all the holes. I use this stuff. It's called Drydex. It goes on pink and dries white. Okay, so we've gone around, actually filled in all of the holes. Okay, you can use this, and also in the corners you can use just like some white paintable caulk. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go around. We're gonna use a sponge and a little bit of sandpaper. There's not much really to do here. We're just gonna clean it up. I don't wanna make too much dust, so we're gonna use this sponge, wet it, and try to flatten out the spots as much as possible. So now we're going to just put a quick thin coat of paint on the outside. Pretty straightforward because we're just painting a flat surface. I'm gonna use my repaint tray. This is actually the same paint, roller, everything that we used the other day. Put the lid on it and it's still fresh. So this thing's really cool. Makes projects like this real nice. At the point of installing the LEDs, this is the last step. Basically the way that this is gonna work is, if this was the wall here, these LEDs are gonna sit just like this, okay? Inside that little channel. The big issue with these systems is, I mean, it's not really an issue, it's just something I don't like. I don't wanna see wires, I don't wanna see anything. I just wanna see lights on and that's all, right? I want it to be like actual fixture. This is the plug, so you have to find somewhere to plug it in, and this is where you plug it in, and then this is where you connect the LEDs in. All right, so you guys can see the problem here. Obviously, this is not gonna be long enough, you know, to run through the wall. So what we need to do is we can either extend this, which I don't wanna do, or we can extend this connection here. That's where this comes into play. So I'll put a link to all this down below. So the way that this works is this connects here. Yeah, there's no arrow though.
There was. There it is.
Oh, arrow, I see that arrow. Okay, so there's an arrow on here, so this plugs into here, right? And now the nice thing is, this is now a long, I think it's like 6 feet long or something like that, long extension, and I can put the power pack and the controller anywhere, right? This can go anywhere. This is gonna run through the wall and pop out on the other side of the cleat. All right, so we're gonna get to doing that. So we gotta find a bay to run this in. I already found my bay, but I'm gonna kind of go through my thought process here. Now, I have some outlets. It depends on where you have outlets. I have outlets on this outside wall here, okay? I'm not gonna go through the outside wall. The reason why is I have insulation that I have to deal with. I'm not gonna deal with that. I have an outlet over here, okay? There's an outlet, a bay over here that I can go through. I'm not gonna go through here because this one is actually controlled by the switch. So we don't want that. That actually would be cool, but you don't want that. She wants it to be controlled with her phone or through the remote. So my other option is this. This is an interior wall, okay? And I have an outlet right here. Now, if I look at this outlet, the way it's laid out, I have a stud right here. So I'm gonna put my little box right here next to this so I can pop out here and plug it in. All right, so this is what we wanna do. We wanna get a hole, but I need to get it up and down and like here. I want it hidden. I don't wanna see the hole. And this is a little bit of a challenge, so maybe I should have done this before. So I'm gonna use a bunch of different ways because it's drywall. So it's not like it's really that difficult to get through. You know, I just don't. So I'm gonna try like this. I don't know, you know, if I had a really small drill bit that fit on here, it'd be good. So I'm gonna try. All right, so that's the hole we made. Really hard to see. What we're gonna do is run this wire down the hole, pop out down there. And, ran into a little bit of an issue. We cannot get this wire through. There's a bunch of plumbing in this wall and we just can't fish this wire from the top to the bottom. So what we're gonna do now is I gotta make this hole a little bit bigger so I can see what's going on in there. This is a low voltage box I was talking about. So I'll put a link to one of these down below. It's actually gonna move it over a little bit so I have space. 4 holes. All right, then we can actually use this just to line it up. All right, we just use drywall saw. All right, so we ran into some plumbing issues. We couldn't use our original hole up there, so we actually had to make another hole and even cut that out. No big deal, just patch it up a little bit later. Now we got our wire running out and running out. All right, so now we're just gonna kind of test the LEDs. We'll install this. We're gonna plug the LEDs. So there's arrows on here, so you plug the arrows in here, and this basically makes it a perfect connection. All right, so we got our cover on. This is how it looks. This is the finished look of the system. I think it's super clean. You can really do this anywhere in your house. So that's the end product there. Oh, hey, so that's the end of the video. I hope that helped. I love this system. I love how there's no wires. It's very clean install. You can install this in any part of your house. Your bathroom, your garage, your bedroom, your kitchen. Please hit that subscribe button. Please leave me a comment down below if you decide to do this yourself. If you have any questions, leave me a comment down below with the question. I'm Mike, Family DIY TV. Check out our merch. Look at that, Family DIY TV. Get these on the website. There's our motto, always learning. I hope you do this project yourself. I hope this was helpful. I hope maybe I inspired you to do DIY your own stuff, because DIY is DI fun. I'm Mike, and I'm LED out. A custom fixture. No, that's not it. Painted up and ready to blip it. And today, we're gonna show you how to build a You're videotaping yourself?
I can't see the camera. It's not showing me what it looks like.